Today, we're going to dive into a management method that was born from a super high-stakes challenge at Toyota. But what's really cool is how it's become this incredibly powerful tool for teams everywhere. It's called Obeya, and it's a pretty simple idea with a totally profound impact on how we collaborate and, actually get stuff done.
So, let me ask you something. Does your daily work ever feel like you're just stuck in a maze? You've got all these different teams, different goals, and information just seems to disappear into thin air. It's a super common frustration, and honestly, it leads to some very familiar problems.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You've got teams working in their own little bubbles, creating these information silos. Decisions that should take like an hour end up taking weeks because the right people just aren't in the same conversation. And maybe the worst part, the actual work getting done feels completely disconnected from the big picture strategy. If any of that sounds familiar, well, you are definitely not alone.
Okay, let's get into the origin story here, because the solution we're talking about today came from a real moment of crisis. We're going back to the 1990s, and Toyota had just set this almost impossible goal for itself: to design the car for the 21st century. The project? You guessed it, the Prius.
Can you just imagine the pressure on the chief engineer Takeshi Uchiyamada? He was worried that with so many experienced, strong-willed leaders involved, the project would just get bogged down in endless debates and turf wars. So his solution was kind of radical in its simplicity. He created a physical, big room where all the key data, all the charts, and all the decision-makers would be in one place all the time. And the result? It was absolutely staggering. The Prius was delivered in under 3 years, a full 15 years ahead of its competitors.
The keyword there is arena. This wasn't just another meeting room. It was a dedicated space where transparency was everything and data was king. By making all the information available to everyone, it totally leveled the playing field. The focus shifted from, defending your own little territory to actually solving problems together.
So Toyota's big room wasn't just a one-off trick. It actually evolved into a formal methodology we now call Obeya. So what exactly is it?
Well, Obeya literally translates from Japanese as large room or big room. Simple enough. But its modern definition goes way deeper. It's a dedicated space, and it can be physical or virtual, where teams can visually connect what they do every day with the overall strategy. The goal is super simple. Use visual data to make smarter decisions, faster. That's it. To make this a little more concrete, think of it like the bridge of a ship, where the captain and the crew can see absolutely everything they need to navigate. Or maybe a collaborative control room, like at NASA, monitoring the health of a project. Some people even call it the brain of the system, a central hub that gives everyone a single source of truth.
When you boil it all down, an Obeya is built to deliver some very specific, very measurable results. First, rapid decisions. You get the right data and the right people in one place, you slash all that back and forth. Second, you reduce rework, because everyone's on the same page from the get-go. And third, your discussions become incredibly focused. They're centered on visual, objective data, not just whoever has the loudest opinion.
Now, to make sure an Obeya is more than just a room with some charts taped to the wall, it's actually built on a framework of 11 guiding principles. These are all grouped into 4 key areas that really give the system its structure and its power.
These 4 quadrants are what hold it all together. First, you have mindset, which is all about creating a culture of constant improvement, where problems are actually seen as opportunities. Then there's alignment. This is so crucial. It connects the team's daily tasks directly to the company's bigger purpose. It answers the question, why are we even doing this? Third is workspace, which is about making sure the physical or digital room has a logical, visual flow. And finally, content. This is all about the data. It has to be reliable, up-to-date, and super easy to understand at a glance. It's the foundation for every decision.
Of course, the world has changed a lot since that first Obeya at Toyota. I mean, we don't all work in the same building anymore. So how does a big room idea adapt to our modern, often remote, way of working?
Well, the principles have turned out to be incredibly flexible. The physical room, with all its sticky notes and whiteboards, it's evolved into a virtual room. Instead of everyone having to be in the same place, now distributed and hybrid teams can log into a Digital Obeya from anywhere in the world, 24/7, with real-time data feeding right into the dashboards.
And its adoption has gone way, way beyond its manufacturing roots. We're talking about major players across all kinds of industries, from tech at Nike to aerospace at Airbus and even pharmaceuticals at Sanofi. They're all using Obeya to get better at working together and making things happen.
Okay, so this might all sound great in theory, but how do you actually put it into practice? Well, the good news is you don't need some massive company-wide project to get started. You can actually start pretty small.
Here are 4 really practical steps to get you going. First, define your purpose. What's the one specific, nagging problem you're trying to solve? Be clear. Second, assemble a small core team. Third, assign a couple of key roles. You need an Obeya builder. That's the person who sets up and maintains the space. And you need an Obeya host, the facilitator who runs the meetings and keeps the rhythm going. And finally, step 4, set up your space, whether it's a corner of the office or a digital dashboard, and start putting up your visuals.
So after looking at where this came from, its core principles, and how it's used today, what's the one big thing you should really remember about Obeya?
Here's the essential insight. An Obeya basically creates a shared brain for a team. It takes all that critical information out of spreadsheets and email chains and puts it into a collective, visible space. And this isn't just about being more efficient. It's about building a system where transparency, accountability, and a relentless focus on a common goal just become the default way of doing things.
And that brings me to the last thought I want to leave you with. Think for a second about the biggest challenge your team is facing right now. You know, the miscommunications, the delays, the silos. And just ask yourself, what kind of big room, physical or virtual, could you create to finally solve it?